Hey everybody, I am Chuck Rogers. I am a licensed professional counselor and licensed marriage and family therapist.
And I'm Keith Dunn, and I'm none of that.
But you are vital.
Yeah, I am. I am a network engineer.
And together we are Tabletop Coffee, where we talk about how to do life, do it well, being bold, and never, ever...
Never bitter. Nope, never bitter.
Yeah, and if you're new to our channel, please subscribe and ring that bell. Why did they ring the bell, Keith?
They ring the bell to be notified. They've got to be notified. You've got to be notified. You know, it's exciting because I'm subscribed to a number of channels, and it's great because it'll pop up on my phone all day.
Yeah, it does.
Like, oh, that's cool. And just click on it and listen to it right then. So be sure to click that bell. That is very important.
It is very important.
It's as important as subscribing, although it helps us a lot for you to subscribe because that builds our viewership.
And tonight we're going to answer the question of how do you know if you're drinking too much? Oftentimes people will come into my office for various reasons. Typically people come because they're depressed or they're anxious or they're having a relational struggle, or sometimes they come to our office because they are struggling with some type of addiction.
Okay.
And sometimes they'll come in not for addictive purposes, but they'll come in for something else, and the situation will kind of arise as to there might be an issue with too much drinking or the use of drugs. And so we'll have to do an assessment to see if it's a problem, and if it is a problem, how big of a problem is it?
Are there a number of times when somebody will come in and they really don't know?
Yes.
Wow, okay. And how difficult is it to determine if they do have an issue with this?
It's really not all that hard at all to determine.
Okay.
There's something that we use called the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, and it has various diagnoses in it and various disorders that are in it. And it's kind of like a cookbook. You'll open up to X and see if somebody meets the criteria for X. And if they do meet the criteria, then they have that diagnosis.
Okay, so how well will that work if somebody wants to use this as a way to kind of self-diagnose? Can they use this list and say, "Ooh, I fall into 2 or 3 or 4 of these. I might have something I need to deal with"?
Yeah, it's a great question. In the past, people were given a diagnosis of alcoholism. People would say, I'm an alcoholic, or you're an alcoholic, those kind of things.
Right.
And the words have changed over time. In the past, somebody was a secretary, and now they're administrative assistant. And in the past, it was medical records in the hospital, and now it's health information.
Oh,
and now it is...
It's not alcoholism, it's...
And now it's alcohol use disorder.
What's the best way to determine if you are struggling with something like that? Is there a predetermined list that we can go through?
Yeah, there actually is. And so what I will do with this person or persons who are sitting in my office, if it's an individual or a couple, is I'll say, well, let's just talk about this. And I'll ask questions about, when was your last drink of alcohol? How much do you typically drink? I realize it kind of varies. How many episodes of intoxication were there, in those kinds of questions to elicit some information that helps to know if you meet the criteria for substance use disorder or alcohol use disorder, or the old term alcoholism. Are you an alcoholic? Those kinds of things. The term just changes every few years.
Okay, so why don't we just dig in and get into the list? And because that's what this episode is about anyway, just trying to get you the information that you need in order to see if there's a problem that maybe you or your spouse or someone needs to go and actually talk to somebody.
Yeah, and there are 11 things that the DSM lists, and if you meet the criteria for 2 of these 11, you begin to have a problem.
Wow, that's amazing. Just 2 things off the list of 11.
Just 2.
Okay. Are there like stages that you go through, or different levels that you're sitting at to where you're having just slight problems with it, or moderate or whatever?
Yeah, good question. Absolutely. Okay. If you meet the criteria for 2 of the symptoms, it's kind of a mild case.
Okay.
If you have 3 or 4, it's considered moderate. If you have 5 or 6 or more, it's called severe.
Oh, okay. So does the treatment for dealing with someone who abuses alcohol, is it the same whether you're a 2 or 3 or mild, or if you're all the way up at 6 or more of these?
No, it's very, very different. If you meet the mild criteria, maybe just some outpatient counseling would be helpful.
Okay.
Or maybe just going to Alcoholics Anonymous would be helpful, or Celebrate Recovery, or some other 12-step program.
Great.
But maybe if it's moderate or more towards severe, you're going to need some treatment where it's like an outpatient program. Or if it is severe, then you probably are going to need some inpatient program.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
Yeah, so let's go through the criteria. We'll just kind of zip through all 11. Remember, you only need to hit 2 of these in order to realize that there is a problem with these.
Yeah, I wanted to know that because if you only have to have 2 of these, are you going to the Betty Ford Clinic
Right.
for being a number 2, or is that further down the road?
It'll be further down the line.
Yeah. Okay, great. So let's go ahead and get into it.
So number 1, you've had times where you ended up drinking more or longer than you anticipated.
So that would be kind of along the lines of, you go into this party and you say, well, I'm driving home, so I can only have 1 drink.
Mm-hmm.
But then you end up having 5.
Yeah, that's exactly what it means.
Okay. Number 2 is you have unsuccessful efforts to cut down or stop your usage of alcohol.
Yeah, the person realizes that there's a problem and want to stop and have tried to stop, but they've just been unsuccessful at stopping or cutting back.
Yeah. Okay, so that's number 2.
Number 2. And number 3 is there's a great amount of time spent in getting, using, and recovering from the use of alcohol.
Okay, number 4 is craving or having that desire to want that next drink of alcohol.
Yeah, just so focused on it, and I have to have something.
Yeah, I have to have it. There's nothing that's really going to get in my way. This is what I'm going to do.
Number 5 is reoccurrent episodes of my responsibilities being hampered by my use. Maybe it's work, maybe it's social, maybe it's school. I have these things I'm supposed to follow through, and because of my use of alcohol, I don't follow through.
Number 6, you continue to use alcohol even when you have persistent issues in social circumstances with family or friends, and it doesn't get any better, but you're going to continue to keep drinking.
Yeah. And number 7 is very similar to number 6
Right.
in regard to it having persistent difficulties with social, relational, occupational kinds of things. But number 7 isn't that it causes problems. Number 7 is that you just give them up. You just don't do them anymore.
And number 8 is continuing to drink and want alcohol when it's even physically hazardous.
Yeah, maybe like you're driving.
Yeah, or working on a construction site, or you're operating on somebody and you're a doctor.
Boating, skiing, anything that's physically
Anything.
hazardous.
Yeah.
Number 9, continuing to drink alcohol despite the knowledge that it is causing or making worse my physical or psychological problems.
Number 10, your tolerance level changes.
Mm-hmm.
So when you would start getting that feeling of having the alcohol in your system and you would have 1 or 2 to get you there, now you're having 4, 5, or 6.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. It takes more and more of the chemical to obtain the same effect.
Right, because your body's kind of getting, does it get used to it?
It does.
Okay, yeah.
And number 11, you begin to experience symptoms of withdrawal. And for the sake of time, let's not talk about symptoms of withdrawal. We'll just write them in the comment section down below, and you can check them out there. So there are the 11 criteria that are used to help evaluate to see if one makes the criteria for alcohol use disorder.
That's a list.
It really is a list. Now, the thing that I like to do is that all 11 of those can be broken down into 3 simple things.
Oh, I like that better.
Yeah. So when I'm talking with someone, I want to know is, do you have a tolerance level? Are you taking more and more of the chemical to obtain the same effect? Number 2, are you experiencing negative consequences, but yet you continue to use? And number 3, have there been repeated efforts to stop or cut back? And those are the big 3 that I use.
That seems like those would be the biggest ones to pull out of that list.
All of those 11 can easily fit underneath those 3 categories. So this is not a professional assessment. This information is for educational purposes. But if you think that you meet the criteria for 2 or more of those, we would encourage you to seek a mental health professional in your area and have an assessment to see if you meet the criteria for substance use disorder. So yeah, there you go. That answers the question of how do you know if you're drinking too much.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that we put that out. I hope that you guys enjoyed, or at least can use this for, maybe yourself or someone you know, to just be able to go through the list and determine, maybe I do have something I need to take a look at.
Do I fit in here somewhere?
Right.
Yeah.
Again, thank you for joining us with Tabletop Coffee this evening. We really appreciate you coming into this place with us every single week. So be sure and subscribe and click that bell.
And make sure to like it.
Yes, be sure to like it. Share it with your friends.
Thanks, everyone.
Until next time.